The dreams. So,
They didn't turn out so
One
well.
is a baker, yeah.
One guy was blessed and one guy got kicked off.
all right, I'm glad you brought up the dreams.
Yeah.
We're going to play a video of the dreams from a kids movie. And one of the things I love about the way kids movies tell the story is you'll see it. The baker is like just mean, and the other guy's like really like nice and everything. So we're gonna watch a video that just it illustrates the dreams. It's from a movie called Joseph, King of Dreams, I think is what it's called. And most of the pictures that we have are going to come from this movie too, because I was trying to keep our theme consistent with the pictures, except one of them because it's a.
A little like the Cain and Abel story. You don't really. It kind of seems random that God
Yes.
gave a one.
Yeah, well, and there's another part too where we're going to see I think all of the dreams come in two. So if you remember way back in the beginning, Joseph's story begins with two dreams, and then in prison there's two dreams, and then Pharaoh's going to have two dreams. There's this theme of two dreams, which is interesting.
Because it's not a complete number. Since it's not three would be the complete number.
Yeah. So this is what we saw last week, not last week, last time we were here. It was about a month ago now. But this is all of the 12 tribes. And so I just want to point out the first four because they're the only important ones. But there's Reuben, Simon, Levi, and Judah. These were the first four sons that were born. And if you remember kind of what we looked at last week, or last time, we saw that Reuben and Simon and Levi and Judah all messed up as brothers. They messed up as sins. In like 2 slides, we're going to go back to that outline. But it was kind of showing why they weren't the leaders of Israel, even though they were the firstborn. And it ends up Judah. And if you remember, Judah had that episode with his 3 sons that they kept dying when they would marry Tamar. And then Judah, she ends up tempting Judah, and he sleeps with her, but then he repents. And that's how Judah shows himself as the good son, because he is remorseful, repents. They all mess up. All of them have problems, but he repents. And then there's Joseph, and then not yet born was Benjamin. And for those who like maps, this is our map that's going to kind of lay out possibly where all of the tribes end up. Sometimes they're in different orders. Sometimes Dan is up here. Other times Dan's over here. Sometimes Benjamin's here. Sometimes he's somewhere else. But this is roughly kind of where the 12 tribes will end up. And if you remember, Manasseh and Ephraim, these are the 2 sons of Joseph that are going to get born this week. And Joseph gets a double portion of the inheritance. So instead of being a tribe of Joseph, there's 2 tribes for his 2 sons. And then Levi doesn't get a tribe because they're the priest. Okay, so this is what we had looked at last time. It started with that rape and revenge for the one daughter. And if you remember, they go to that tribe and they have all of the other men circumcised, and then they slaughter all of them.
While they're still weak.
Yeah.
While they were still weak. And I think we looked at it, it's 10 days is the recovery time, and they went on day 3. So it's like right when it was the worst. And that was Simon and Levi's sin, because they harmed one person. Simon and Levi go and harm the whole town. All of their women and all of their children. It's not seen in a good light.
When did an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth come in?
So this is going to come in later in Leviticus. And actually, that's a good thing. When we hear eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, it sounds harsh. That's actually a restricting law.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you have different tribes, so say like Ellen spat in my teacup, and so I was mad, so I put poison ivy in her lipstick. Well, then she got mad, so she put poison ivy in my salad. Well, then I got mad, so I put poison ivy in her grandmother's salad. And then suddenly grandma dies, so she kills my whole family. There's this escalation that has taken place. In a lot of these like tribal families, there was escalation. So eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth is in Leviticus. It restricts punishment. saying if you spit in my cup, I can spit in your cup, but that's it. I shouldn't escalate any further. Jesus takes that a step farther in the Sermon on the Mount and says, not only do you not repay evil for evil, you actually
Turn the other cheek.
turn the other cheek. And so there's this progression that we're going to see throughout scriptures. That's a good question. That part's not that important. But if you remember in Genesis 37, we see Joseph and he has those 2 dreams. Do you remember the dreams that Joseph has?
Was that when his brothers were going to bow down?
Yes, they were all of their wheat bells and they come and they bow down. This is important because we're going to see it be fulfilled this week. The first dream is the wheat bells that bow down. The second dream, now it's his father and it's the rest of the family, and they're the stars, and all of them arrange around him in a way of that Joseph has authority. We're going to see those 2 dreams fulfilled this week. Joseph gets sold into slavery. And remember we talked about Reuben's sin, because Reuben, he is now the one supposed to be in charge, and he doesn't really do too well. And then in Genesis 38, we see Judah's sin, but Judah repents. And this is why Judah, even though he's the 4th born son, is the one that's going to become the leader, because he repents. And so we're all explaining how did the 12 tribes end up the way that they were. It's because Judah was the better son. And then they sell Joseph, and he goes to Potiphar, and he has that episode with Potiphar's wife, where she is trying to sleep with him, and he runs, and she tears the cloak, and he ends up in prison. What we ended with last week is that Joseph is an honorable man. And I think I told the story about being in Sunday school with my dad and learning this story about fleeing from temptation and being like Joseph. And I just love Joseph because he's a good example of someone who's honorable. He's kind of always looking on the bright side. Even though he keeps getting dealt a bad hand, he keeps making the best of it. And throughout every episode, Joseph is blessed. So we ended last week, he becomes ruling over the prison.
So Reuben saved Joseph's life.
Yeah.
And he failed on his responsibility as the number 1 son. There was another part too we had looked at.
To keep them from selling him to slavery?
Yes, yeah. It would have been his responsibility to do so. There was another part that was in here that was also Reuben's sin. I couldn't fit it in the slide, but we talked about it on that actual one. And I can't remember because it was now 3 weeks ago. So we looked at Joseph. Remember, Rachel is that favored wife of Israel. And the son, the name might mean a son, like to add a son, or it might mean my reproach has been taken away. And there's those two names for it. And we also talked about that Joseph is kind of the pinnacle of all of the patriarchs. We've all been leading to Joseph because we're trying to get in the story, how do we go from Abraham to Moses? And Joseph is kind of our stepping stone that gets all of Israel into Egypt for the Exodus to happen. And I really do love Joseph. Of all of the role models we've had so far, I feel like Joseph is the one that we can actually look at. And most of what he does go, yeah, let's be like Joseph. Everyone else is pretty messed up in these stories. So today's story, it's going to be a good revenge plot. Have you read Count of Monte Cristo before? Okay, I've not seen the movie, but I've read that book in school. And we read the shortened version, and I wanted to read the big one. Because who doesn't like a good revenge story? When I read Joseph's thing, he has this kind of revenge plot. And when you read it with fresh eyes, so you can just imagine, like, you've never heard this story before, you don't know how it ends. And you're around the campfire and someone's telling you this story, you don't know at every turn what's going to happen. This reads like a good revenge story, and you don't know the ending. Will Joseph forgive them or will he not? And when you're reading it, you kind of don't know. It's almost like Joseph is figuring it out as the story goes on. And really, when I'm reading it with that kind of view, to me, it's like he's waiting to see if they will repent. And that determines if he will forgive them. He keeps testing them along the way. So my question for you, is this a good or a bad thing? Is this part of Joseph good, or is he cunning and kind of evil? Y'all all said good and forgiving and compassionate, so
He had a plan, kind of, and it changed as he got more information.
It kind of reminds me of a cat chasing a mouse.
Yeah.
Playing with
He's
it
playing,
first, then
yes.
Yeah.
maybe eating it, maybe not.
This change.
That's what I like.
Joseph decided not to eat it.
I see him, he's kind of on the fence. All in all, though, I think we could say he's a good guy.
But he's still waiting, he's responding to what they do, so he's still
Yeah.
open.
Yes.
To me, it really seems like Joseph might have, if they didn't repent, would have caused more harm. Or at least he would have set more plots until they felt their guilt. It's almost like he wanted to give them the chance to repent.
But he set them up with the Pharaoh's cup.
Yeah.
Let me put the cup in
Okay.
Benjamin's
We'll get to that point. We'll get to that when we get there. As a hint, it's again to show us that Judah is a good son. So I think what we will see. Oh, I just put that here. The rest of the story, we're going to continue to see Judah rise as the authority son, not Reuben, not Simon, not Levi. In fact, when the other brothers try to be the leader, they just mess it up. They don't do a good job at being the leader. Judah is the one that should be the leader. And he's going to keep testing the brothers. And there's also a lot of double language that doesn't come across in the English that plays around with guilt. And there's a lot of these like undertones in some of the episodes that happen. But in the end, I think all of this story, it's about forgiveness. For me, when I read this, he is bringing his brothers to the point of like where he can forgive them, or like so that they can repent. In the episodes that he sets up, they're all related to guilt. Like the parts with the silver cup, the parts with the silver coins, all of these things, it's related with guilt.
I think he's really trying to help his brothers. I think he has a good intent. But he's not just going to give it to them. He's going to but he could have just as easily thrown him in prison and said,
Yeah.
I mean, he had the power, or let him starve.
Yeah.
So I think he wants.
He's
to
letting them
succeed.
grow.
Yeah, but they have to do part of the work.
You know,
And my Bible says Judah's speech, one of the finest prose pieces from Israel's early tradition.
Judah's
speech, yeah, that's where he's pleading on behalf of
cool.
the brother, Benjamin.
Benjamin.
Summarizes and epitomizes the whole sequence of events.
That's in 44. No, that's after.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
that's
did I catch you up? Somebody?
I have a question about forgiveness. We've been studying that, and Susan will be able to corroborate that if I'm remembering correctly.
What?
And that was doing the Sunday mornings, the agape study. I believe it was Acts. And forgiveness does not depend on the person repenting. Forgiveness is grace. And so when I look at this, I'm thinking, would he have forgiven them even if they had not repented?
It's almost like he wants to give them the gift of repenting so that they can move past their own guilt.
But he would have forgiven them anyway.
Maybe.
We don't know.
No, I
He seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
I do imagine, though, like when you're hearing the story for the first time, it's like, man, what's going to happen? Because the brothers aren't that nice. So this was the chiasm. Remember, Alan, do you know what a chiasm is? It's so used throughout scriptures, particularly the Old Testament, and it's when things are set up like a pyramid. So it'll be like A, B, C, B, A. And the middle of the stories is the focal point. And so like an example would be, I am Jesus, I love everyone, all who follow me should love because I am the Son of God. And so like there is Jesus, who is the Son of God, and in the middle is this kind of part about love. And that's the focal point. Sometimes Proverbs use them too when they repeat, and they'll be in one sentence. Sometimes, like in Joseph's story or in Abraham's story or all the other ones, they're chapters long ones. And for Joseph, the focal point is this scene where he reveals himself to the brothers. And it's this part of reunion when they all come together. Okay, this is our overview we're going to look at today. And I kept the titles mostly the same that's in here, so it's just easier to follow along. So in chapter 40, we're going to start by seeing the dreams of the two prisoners. And then in the next chapter, we're going to see Pharaoh's dream and then the result of Joseph interpreting those dreams. And to help us kind of visualize this, I'm going to play a little movie clip. These are both 2.5 minutes long, so they're pretty short.
Yeah, I think all right.
And I struggle with trying to turn around and do these things. I'm really bad at this. Oh, there's my mouth. I appreciate you all's patience with me. Hey, you came just in time for our movie.
Oh, perfect.
This is we're just now starting.
Yeah,
Popcorn.
this is cold. These are cold.
It's terrible.
This is, yeah, that's less cold. That's
So-
better cold.
Here's one. Ah,
This one is the two dreams in the prison in chapter 40.
I looked on mine. Just like your hair.
Sounds crazy, but it was so. Can you hear this?
We're old people.
Yeah.
Loud stuff.
Yeah, it's quieter than I thought it was going to be. Let's see.
We have to have those horn things.
Let's see. Somebody tell a story real quick while I click on this.
I think this
I
is so
think
much
that the
fun.
story should be titled, God is lactose intolerant.
Why?
Because he kills the baker.
Gluten intolerant.
Gluten.
Gluten.
Oh, there we go. I like that.
Yep, yep.
All right, I got this on here now.
I know it sounds crazy, but it was so
I
real.
can't hear.
I was up all night with my own dreams. Now you want to take up my day with yours? Yes. I was back at Pharaoh's palace in a garden of grapes that had 3 old vines. A tear fell from my eye, and the vines drank it in. They became so thick with grapes that I squeezed them into a cup and served it to Pharaoh. That is quite a dream.
I know what your dream means.
You do? How could you?
I just do. Some kind of gift. The 3 vines signify 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will bring you back to the palace. A free man.
If only it were true.
It is true. And when you're free, tell Pharaoh about my gift. Please, promise me.
Some gift. To make up fairy tales and give hope to the foolish.
Maybe he's not making it up.
All right, then. Here's one I've had every night for the last week. I'm taking 3 baskets of bread to Pharaoh, one on top of the other, when the baskets fall. I go to pick up the bread, and suddenly a swarm of birds come out of nowhere and attack me. They keep pecking at me in the face and the eyes. What does it mean?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. Tell me. Tell me!
The 3 baskets also signify 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will behead you, and birds will feed on your flesh.
What? You're lying! You're lying!
Stop it! No. Don't pay any attention to him. We're not going anywhere.
Take him.
Get up.
It's gonna be all right, you'll see. Tell Pharaoh about me. I will. Don't forget me!
All right, there's our first story. Wow, that is loud, isn't it?
Well, not really, you can't hear.
It was loud to me.
Yeah, it got loud.
Okay, so that is our first one. These two dreams, Joseph interprets them, and then they come true. When you read along in chapter 40, he is supposed to go and tell them, but it's been 2 years, and Joseph is still just sitting there in prison and forgotten. Do y'all like the movie thing?
Yeah.
You like this? Okay, all right. We have one more for the next one. This it visualizes it in a much better way than I can tell it. So the next one is Pharaoh's dream. And this one will summarize chapter 41. It's only like 2.5 or 3 minutes. Same as the last. So let me get it. I love it when y'all like kids' movies and stuff.
We love kids' movies.
I love the way it explained it. Like the baker is just like a jerk. Yeah.
You do.
And Joseph just doesn't know how to wear a shirt in any of these.
I'm told you merely need to hear a dream. You can explain it.
Not me, Your Excellency. The explanation comes from God.
None of my wise men are magicians. None of my gods can help me. What makes you think your God is any different?
Tell me your dream, Pharaoh.
Every night it's the same. I'm standing by the Nile. 7 healthy cows graze peacefully on the banks. But then 7 horrible, sickly cows come from the same river. The most wretched I have ever seen in Egypt. Suddenly they begin to devour the healthy cattle. And yet the cows remain as sickly as before. Then I wake up.
Is there more?
Yes, another dream always follows. 7 ears of grain, full and golden, grow from a single stalk. Suddenly 7 ears hardened, scorched, spring out of the same stalk. And swallow the 7 good ears. All that remains are shriveled grains unfit to eat. And nothing else. Well,
Pharaoh's dreams are one. The healthy cows and ears of grain are 7 years of abundance. The sickly cows and the withered grain mean 7 years of famine will follow and destroy the land. Egypt may not survive.
can this be stopped? What can be done?
You must find a man you can trust. During the years of plenty, have him collect 1/5 of the grain from every field and store it under guard. Then during the years of famine, give it back to the people.
Potiphar, you trust this man?
With my life, Excellency.
Through this man, I have seen the future of Egypt. And through his deeds, we shall prosper. I am giving him power over all Egypt. Only Pharaoh will be greater. You shall call him Zaphnath-Paneah. The God speaks and he lives.
Okay. Say what?
I said, I I think this would be great for kids.
Yeah, I love the way they tell things to kids. Also, I didn't notice this before, but I did while sitting here. When the baker reached out to Jacob, he grabbed him with his right and balled a fist with his left, like he was left-handed, which usually would be the other way. So that was. I just like little details like that. That's fun. Am I in the way if I'm sitting right here? Am I blocking? Can you see? Can everyone see? Okay.
What are you going to do here and here?
So in these two dreams, we're going to see Joseph's gift, and we know this story. Joseph interprets the dreams; it comes true. But I want to focus at this part of Joseph's rise to power. So Joseph is named as an Egyptian name, and what it might mean, but we don't know, is God lives and God speaks. Etymologists can't find a direct link to the name, but that's what it might mean, and that's. Generally, when people give his name a meaning, this will be what it is. God lives and speaks. And it's a special name because Joseph is now the voice of God, kind of for other people. And so it's a very special name. It's like a priestly name. He is kind of elevated in the Egyptian cult. That gold piece that he was given in the ring, that the ring is political power, and that gold piece is religious power. So he is elevated very highly. He is married to Aneseth, daughter of Potiphera. If you remember way back when we talked about Potiphar last time, we said he may have married Potiphar's daughter. So some people may think this is the same, because it's the same name in Egyptian. Except the other Potiphar was part of the military guard. This Potiphar is a priest of On, which is later named to Heliopolis when the Greeks come in. What's special about this city, do I say this? Oh, it's on my next slide, so we'll wait. Well, I'll go ahead and say it now. So this is, I just find this fascinating. On is where the first kind of iteration of monotheism develops around the god Ra. So if you go back in Egypt's story, like for the most part, they are polytheistic. They have a pretty large pantheon. And there's even different iterations of Ra. At first, though, Ra, or the sun god, wasn't the head of the pantheon. And there came one Egyptian pharaoh who was a cultist around Ra. And that was from On. And he ended up banning worship of other gods except Ra. Which is just really fascinating. So I don't know if there's some kind of connection for the emphasis about, like, this city is kind of known as the monotheistic city. That pharaoh was later ruled a heretic, and they kind of kicked him out, and he was killed. It caused a big war in Egypt. Where'd my mouse go? Here it is. Oh. But this is where he has two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh means, for God has made me forget all my hardship and my father's house, which is a strange way. Some translations translate it differently, that he hasn't forgotten his father's house, but he's forgiven the shame that came from his father's house. And then, like he's forgotten his anger, like he's forgiven. Yeah. The other is Ephraim, which is God has made me fruitful in the land of my misfortunes. So special names there. And then we know, as the story goes, the famine comes after these years, and Joseph is in charge of all of the food stores. Okay. So after we get these through two ones, we come to chapter 42. And this is when Joseph's brothers are going to come to Egypt. And then later they're going to go back home. So this is in the second year of the famine. All of his family had run out of food. And if you remember, his family, the number is around 70, including the brothers and their children. And they might have servants and slaves. But the family number is about 70. And as they come to Egypt, they come to Joseph, but they don't recognize him. He is speaking Egyptian. He's dressed like an Egyptian. He doesn't look like they remember him from years and years ago. And so Joseph accuses them of being spies And kind of the deal that they reach says, you need to bring me the youngest son, Benjamin. And I'm going to keep one of you as collateral. So he keeps Simon as collateral. There's a few reasons that Joseph might be mentioning Benjamin. One of them, he wants to see if they killed Benjamin too. The other thing, if you remember, Benjamin wasn't born yet, but he knows that it's his full brother. So he's trying to test them to see, like, did they kick this guy out to the curb like they did me? And so this is a test there for the brothers. While this is going on, the brothers are talking amongst themselves, and they're like, God is repaying us for our sin. And so Joseph is overhearing them and kind of can hear their guilt that they see growing. And so what Joseph does is he puts the silver in the bag and fills up their bags and sends them home. There's some play on words that kind of happen here with the silver going in the bag. It's another way of showing guilt. I find it a little confusing how scholars come to that conclusion, but it was in multiple commentaries. I don't quite get it, but somehow, for some reason, that shows guilt when you do that. I don't quite understand why. And the other part to know is when you read this, it happens twice. Like they uncover their bags on their way, and then they go home, and then they find more silver. The reason for that is probably because it's just more than one source of the stories that they put together. That would explain why that happens twice. As they go back home, by the way, this is a really famous painting of Joseph dining with his brothers. So I wanted to put that one in here. So they run out of food eventually, and it's almost like they forget about Simon. He's just way off in Egypt, and they go a whole year until they run out of all of their food. And so they end up returning with Benjamin, plus a double portion of silver and other gifts. So they take dates and almonds and other things. And here Reuben gives this offer. He says, if anything happens to Benjamin, you can kill my 2 sons as collateral. So kind of the point of this is to show us Reuben's an idiot. He doesn't get it, and he's not a good leader. He would offer his sons, and a good grandfather doesn't want his grandsons to die anyway. And so Judah offers himself as collateral, which is again showing us that Judah is a better ruler. He's a better son. And as they return to Egypt, this is what this picture of Joseph calls them into his own house and calls a feast. As you would expect, that is a very rare scenario. And he does this when he sees Benjamin. And so the brothers think that they're kind of getting set up for a trap. So they're kind of trying to be very careful. I can almost see this as a play, and everyone's scared as they kind of walk up to the table. And one thing to note is that Egyptians never ate with foreigners. And so they are eating at separate tables. Also, Egyptians never ate lamb. And so there's some kind of very key differences to them and the Hebrews, where the Hebrews ate lamb and not the other foods. They're the opposite. And they end up having a good time, so they feast and they drink. And here's the important part. While they're drinking, they're seeing Joseph drink from his special cup. And the special cup that Joseph would have had, does anyone have their own personal special cup? What is your special cup?
It was a gift from my son, my coffee cup.
That is how this is my special cup. And I take it home, I bring it here with me. Somehow I've had it for years and it's not broken. And I think we've had this since our first year that we got married. So it's kind of, I've taken it on planes with me, but this is my special cup.
Wow.
And Joseph has his own special cup. I really relate to Joseph in his special cup. I also have special night cups that I have tea into. This is my daytime. Does no one else have a special cup?
I do.
What's your special cup?
I have coffee in the morning, and it's very ornate. It's really more shaped like a teacup. The coffee cup should be this way. Teacup is more that way.
Okay.
It's this way, but I have coffee in it.
Okay.
It's decorated inside, and it looks like a decoration like lace or whatnot. It's really pretty.
Where'd you get it from?
When I went out, I got it from my son and his wife when I went out to help with their first baby. Almost 14 years ago.
Wow, okay.
Oh.
And I about you?
14 years is the winner so far. Ellen, what is your special cup?
Mine is, I love it. It's a pottery pottery cup from a lady in Gatlinburg. And I had a whole, like, 4 plates dinner eating.
Oh, wow.
4 mugs. I don't have one left. They all broke when we moved and everything. It really is special
Yeah.
to me. It's just the right height. Coffee doesn't get cold in it as quickly as it does in other ones. So it's not as fancy as that, but I won't give it up.
So nobody else has a special cup?
We have our favorite Manhattan glasses. Does
There
that
you
count?
That counts, yeah. That sounds like
Yeah,
a good.
yeah.
Is it, I don't know what a Manhattan goes in. Is it just a normal straight glass or?
Well, we've gotten hooked. They're called coupe glasses.
Oh,
They
okay.
look like champagne glasses, basically.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And apparently, it's the
They're
latest
gonna take
way.
their wide bowl.
Latest
Yeah.
way for serving Manhattans and so.
Ooh.
I have 2 special coupe glasses, but they're for daiquiris. That is it fits the perfect amount. It fits in it. Good. And you can. It has a lot of ice. Okay, this is not relevant. So Joseph has a special cup. So a lot of us can relate to the special cup, and that's kind of there's this emphasis on Joseph and them drinking, and it's kind of to put this emphasis. Everyone sees Joseph's special cup. The other part to know about Joseph's special cup, not only did he drink from it, it's also where he would have done divination. And so as he would, if you've seen like in movies, they would drink the tea and they would read the dregs kind of at the bottom.
Harry Potter.
I was thinking of Harry Potter. Other ones too, like they might look at the coffee sludge at the bottom. So there is an illusion that one way Joseph is kind of, whether Joseph actually did that, that is what you would think of as someone who can read the future. And so there is this emphasis. He's really playing into his Egyptian role. And it could be when people read this, they thought that was one way Joseph could divine the future, but God was the one kind of showing him through that way. And so Joseph is going to continue his kind of plot to test his brothers. And so he puts his own silver cup in Benjamin's bag. And then they give that bag to Benjamin and they send them on their way. Now, when he waits kind of an amount of time and he goes to his head servant, he says, go after them. And I'm assuming the servant is kind of in on the ploy at this point. But when they come to the brothers, they're almost appalled. And they're like, of course they wouldn't do such a thing. If anyone has stolen your cup, kill them, and the rest of us will be your slave. Now, this is an example of exaggerated punishment. And it's almost like they're so shocked at this kind of accusation. And so the servant even says, no, we're not going to kill anyone. We'll just take that one person. Will come back as a prisoner and as a servant to Joseph. But that was an unusual kind of punishment, even for like a divine object, such as the divination cup. You wouldn't kill someone for it. And so they all agree, and they cut the bags open, and there, what do you know, Benjamin has this cup, comes rolling out of the bag, and everyone is shocked at it. And we're about to see Judah kind of plead for it. But Joseph continues to toy with them, and he says he will only take Benjamin. He won't take anyone else.
That's when Judah gives his speech.
Yes. Yeah, that's our next.
Was that a foot in the front of that image?
It's this is Joseph's foot. I was trying to take screenshots from scenes in the movie that would fit right here, but you can see his reflection in the cup, like it rolls out in front of him.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so there's Benjamin, like it rolled out of his bag, and Joseph is there, and all the other brothers are there too. So Judah is going to plead for Benjamin. Now there is a lot of space in the text given to this section, and I want to reiterate. A lot of what we're seeing is why Judah should reign as the lead tribe. And so there is a lot of emphasis on Judah here. And the reason is to balance out. You would think Joseph would be the leader because he's kind of the golden boy in these stories. But it's showing us how Judah is going to come to be where David is going to come from and everything to lead Israel. And so Judah is begging that he would take himself rather than Benjamin. And what ends up happening is that, I almost forgot. So this is the third dot. There's a play on words with man and die and lad that keeps happening. So Joseph keeps referring to Benjamin as just that man, that man. And Judah keeps saying that boy, that lad, or my boy, my lad. It's almost like he's calling him his own son. And it's very tender words, where Joseph is like using kind of degrading standoff words like that, just random guy over there. Part of that might be Joseph is so moved by emotion in this that he can't even recognize him there, because this plot is kind of really taxing on Joseph's spirits.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I've also read that Joseph loved Benjamin so much because they had the same mother.
Yes. Yeah.
And
very much so.
You know, they were connected. Even though he's doing craziness here, he loved him.
And it's almost like it's so hard for him to toy with Benjamin, but he has to.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
There's also this play on words with die, and it's unclear in the Hebrew, and the sentence may be structured strangely, that Judah is saying, like, kill me or my father will die if you don't do this. And it's a really strangely arranged sentence, and the idea is that Judah is saying, my father will die unless you do this. So someone is going to die, let it be me, not him. And when he says this line, Joseph just about loses it. So he goes he just kind of breaks down crying. And it also kind of seals the deal that the brothers are remorseful, because now they don't want anyone to get hurt, and they're putting themselves in the way. And that's going to bring us to chapter 45, which is going to be kind of the focal point of Joseph's story, where he reveals himself to the brothers. So Joseph can't hold it anymore, and he breaks down crying. And you can kind of just imagine that he just like kind of wipes off the eyeliner, and he pulls off his hat and suddenly starts speaking Hebrew.
Yeah.
And he says, I am your brother Joseph. And the brothers are stunned. They just stand there in silence. And he says, it's true, I'm your brother Joseph. And yeah.
I was going back to the part about the chalice and about the love of Jacob that he has for Benjamin. That reminds me of Jesus and God. God loved Jesus so very much. And these brothers know how much Benjamin means to their father more than the rest of them. So he's got to be protected at all things because the love of Jacob for Benjamin.
It's almost like
Jesus and God loving Jesus.
Yeah. It's almost like they didn't see that until they did it to Joseph and saw how much it broke him. So they've grown. That is a good picture, though, about love. Mm-hmm. Hopefully the love we would have, too. Kind of on that, Joseph then lays out this theological reason of why all of this has happened. And so he doesn't say this line yet, but we're going to see it at the end of Genesis. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. He says very similar things that are close to that. And then he tells the brothers, I will take you in. And you can settle in the land of Goshen. Goshen is this area that's kind of east of the Nile. And so the Nile River flows this way. So this is what we call Lower Egypt. This is Upper Egypt, because the elevation is higher this way and it points out toward the Mediterranean. And as the Nile spreads, it goes into the delta that spreads. And this is all of the fertile land in Egypt. Out here is very arid. So even today in Egypt, like 90% of the population is just right here, around here and in this area. And so they go to the land of Goshen is where he promises. It's the best of the best. This is the best land that they can settle in. And in case you're curious, there's On way down here. Later in the same story in Genesis, they're going to call Goshen, he says, the land of Ramses, which is kind of in the same area, but if you're curious, it's right there. And it's might be the same place. But just as a note, Ramses is a city that's not built for hundreds of more years. And so what ends up happening is that they go to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh loves this idea because he loves Joseph. He respects him. And so he gives them chariots, and he says, go and get all of your family and bring them back. And as they come back, Joseph gives all of his brothers a gift, but he gives Benjamin, he just lavishes him in gifts. You can see that love that kind of he has for Benjamin. And he also gets some gifts for his father, and they bring Jacob back to Israel before he dies. There's the land of Goshen. So my question is, what have you learned so far from Joseph's story? That kind of wraps up the plot of Joseph's story. Next week, we're going to wrap up the rest of Genesis. What to you stands out with the lessons from it?
God's love.
God's love for...
Well, obviously for Joseph and everything, but also on down to us. If we extend it, God's grace and love, we may not recognize it like they didn't know Joseph working through, but it happens, and then even as an afterthought, I can see grace and something bad.
Yes, that I think to me is one of the biggest things. It's just that line, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. Mm-hmm. For Joseph, like Joseph's theology, it leans very heavily on the providence of God. That God is arranging these things to take care of all of us, to arrange God's own plan, and God's plan won't harm us. And so that really is what gets Joseph through all of these hard moments. And I really like that. I think that's very comforting to me. And it's something I aspire to be like Joseph in that no matter these moments that you go through your life, it'll be okay. God is still working. Just hold on and wait.
Yeah, I would rephrase it to Joseph's devout faith and belief in God.
Yeah.
Even with crap going on all around.
For years and years.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to believe in God if things are going well. But if you have a bump in the road here and there, but if you have years of crap, it kind of can wear on you. And he seems like he has this conviction that is immovable.
Yeah. So my question for you is: have you had moments, maybe in your life, that you want to share that were stories like this? There's years or moments of hardship that at the end you come and you see, wow, I see where God was working now.
I can't.
Can you share with us?
I want to share with it because that's part of who I am. I'm an alcoholic. And for years and years, more than 7, I struggled and struggled and struggled. And the grace of God and a pill you take called Antabuse that blocks any effect that would be good. And my AA friends used to say it was a crutch, but it isn't. The grace of God got me to the right doctor, and I just could see back my sponsor, all the friends that were there for me at my worst. And when I would relapse, it would devastate my family. And we were all together on July 4th. And it was wonderful. It was swimming, grandkids, everything. And that's a miracle. I mean, it wasn't recent, Jane, but it's still my story.
Thank you for sharing.
I'll say when marriages go bad and you think you're just the pits, and then you meet somebody else.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me.
Our marriage is okay.
Exactly.
So my story was last year when we lost our house. I mean, it was just a normal day. We were watching TV, heard a drip, and 24 hours later, we were loading up a U-Haul, and there was just random people. I mean, I didn't know some of the people that had just packed up our house, and it was one of the moments I was really starting to lose my hope in people. I mean, I was really like my idea that people can still be good was wearing thin. And here comes this moment that was hard for me, but I was relieved with how many people came and helped. I mean, it was like Clay bought us a hotel room for the night. Christopher came and helped us load up at like 11 o'clock at night after John Michael's birthday party. Billy helped me move the U-Haul because I couldn't drive it the driveway. After it had loaded down, I was like, I can't get it out of here. And just, I mean, so many people came to help. And, you know, one of the harder moments of my life, but 6 months later, we moved into a house that's the safest house we've ever lived in before. So
What happened to the house again?
the ceiling collapsed in the storms. It blew off shingles and it got wet on the inside, and it made some weird air thing that it just like blew out the sheetrock or whatever. And I mean, it was quick too. I mean, it was a few hours and it was down.
Wow.
Does anyone have another?
Well, my husband passed away. I was a teacher at CAK, and that whole community surrounded me. Students came and mowed my yard for 6 months, and they just lifted me up.
Yeah.
It was just a beautiful thing. Like you say, you renewed your faith in mankind. It was more beautiful than anything I've ever seen.
Mine was also, excuse me for going in, that God did not give up on me.
Yeah.
And He did not give up on me. And just the same thing, the people around me, I will take a little credit for some of the strength of being able to do that. I mean, but that's with God's grace, because it wasn't easy. What you went was a nightmare. But in those moments, I knew God was with me. That sounds real weirdo, but I knew things would work out because God did not give up on me.
Thank you all for sharing those. I really, when I look at Joseph's story, his devout faith and belief in God, is that how you said it?
Sounds good.
Okay.
We'll go.
It's something I really aspire to. It's one of the things I love about Joseph's story, and even just his long-suffering ability to and dedication to God and walking the way of God. It really is something to aspire to. And I think, too, what we see is kind of throughout David's life Joseph's life, in part because of his own ability to work with God, God works through Joseph and does these great things. And then kind of the end of the story is now Israel ends up in Egypt. Next week, we're going to finish the book of Genesis. It's going to sound like a lot of the other patriarchs dying, where there's a blessing for all of the sons. So we're going to look at some of those. And it's going to get us into Exodus. And for the people of Israel, and kind of for the arc of Scripture, the Exodus is as pinnacle of a story as creation itself. It's what marks the people of Israel as a people, is the story of the Exodus. So it's important to get us into Egypt for that to happen. I think I have one more picture. Did I have one more slide? No, I guess I took that part out. Okay. But that's Joseph. We're essentially done with all the plot that's going to happen, but we'll finish Genesis next week. Any parts of Genesis so far that you just want to share for the good of the people? Maybe Alan, who's just joining us this week.
Yeah, let's put Alan on the spot.
Well, if anyone wants to share anything for Alan, is what I was thinking.